Welcome back. The Public Service and Administration Minister, Noxolo, Kieviet, introduced new guidelines that are supposed to help government professionalise the public service. It's supposed to be part of a process to make sure public servants are able to do their jobs effectively. It's also, to an extent, about perhaps depoliticising the public service. In other words, it wouldn't matter who's in power and where. As you know, there's been a huge argument about cadre deployment recently. A judge has said, though, that the ANC is not breaking the law by using cadre deployment. Claude Naiker is the National Manager of the Public Servants Association. Claude, good afternoon to you. What do you believe these guidelines will do? How do you think this is going to work?
Yes, good afternoon to you, Stephen. Hopefully that it will improve the public service. It has always been tainted as something that we have lazy public servants, unable to do their job, and never always delivering on the mandate, especially delivering to the most vulnerable in our society. So hopefully that these new guidelines will sort of inculcate a thinking that our public service is heading in the right direction, that those that are employed there or will be employed there is just not a job, but it's going to be a career, because it was always the thinking that when you get employed in government, you're going to be there till 65, you just do your job and then you go home, and it's never really a career for you. If you're stuck in one occupational class, you're going to be stuck there for the rest of your life itself. So these guidelines have been as a result of a public service summit that we had about a few years ago, where a declaration was signed by all parties, meaning the employer and the unions, to say that this is what we will work towards and strive towards getting the public service more professional and hopefully having a better picture of the public service in South Africa.
So, I mean, many of us would have been to a situation where you go to a council building, you wait in a long queue, you find people there watching daytime television, I'm afraid to say. Claude, I can give you another example. Go to a license centre to get your driver's license card. Again, a long queue. No one really working very hard, I'm afraid to say. That's just two of my own personal examples. Don't get me started on the post office. So will the worker experience, will the customer experience, the citizen's experience, actually change as a result of this?
Yeah, unfortunately, normally when we look at the public service, it's always highlighted two very significant departments, which is the Department of Home Affairs and, quite rightly, you pointed out, the Motor Licensing Bureau, and then we tend to taint the entire public service. But unfortunately, that is the case and that is the reality. What the directive really aims to achieve, like you pointed out in your introductory cadre deployment, hopefully that we will take care of those scenarios or those problems that we have. What the directive now seems to say that, especially those that are in management level, that you need to have a minimum qualification of an NQF level 7. And prior to being employed, you need to go through a pre-entry program which you need to pass in order to be accepted or in order to be get into an interview process. And once you have qualified in those respects, then there's other directives that you need to actually ensure that takes place, where there's continuous development, continuous training, and also a sort of a growth and a career path in which you sign a performance agreement that will entail you to ensure that you are productive. Also, there's training programs on ethical and due diligence and governance aspects that will hopefully help you to actually do your job. And most critical in that directive is a program cultivating a good leadership qualities when you become or if you're employed as an SMS manager itself. Other issues in the directive, it tries to improve the recruitment and selection process. It also eradicates experience being a requirement for those that are on levels 1 to 5. So what this means is that if you need to apply or you are applying for a job that's on level 1 to 5, experience is no longer going to be a prerequisite. The qualification requisite will be there. So once you are employed, training and development will be a continuous aspect during your career in the public service. So those are some of the elements that has been inculcated in the new directive. Other issues include, as I pointed out, a very rigorous performance development system that one has to go through once is employed. And hopefully that will take care of enhancing and improving the type of public servants that we get so that they can deliver a better service itself. It's something that's new, the directive. There were directives there that were in the past, but nobody really paid interest to these directives. I think as a result of the Public Service Declaration and the summit, it came to the fore. Everybody started to take notice, and we said we need to do something, and hopefully that we will get a better public service that we can deliver on our mandate. Or these public servants can actually provide a better service to everybody concerned.
I mean, and that's what everybody wants. I mean, I think there's nothing better than going home at the end of the day knowing you've done your job properly. And there's nothing better as a citizen, in the times it has happened, Claude, when I go away from a government office thinking, oh, that was quick. I've got what I need. There's a whole issue around politics here, and it gets very messy, and there are lots of different views on it. Do you, as the Public Servants Association, believe that the public service should be completely depoliticized? And you know this takes us to cadre deployment quite quickly, but let me keep it at a broad level for now. Do you think it should remain unpolitical?
The simple scenario, Stephen, the best man for the best job itself. If you meet the requirements of any particular job and you are the best candidate for that job, why not? Whether you belong to a political party or not, I think at the end of the day, with this new directive, if you look at the new improved selection and selection procedure, if you meet that criteria, you have the relevant qualifications to do the job, irrespective from where you are, I think that candidate would be considered. And I think it will take care of the problem that you've outlined, is that if there was cadre deployment and one did not meet the suitable requirements of that post, obviously you're not going to be a good fit for that job. And we have found in a lot of instances where people after 2-3 years, the public service have discovered that they don't have the requisite qualification. There was an audit done last year where we found that almost 40% of the high-ranking officials didn't meet the proper skills and the qualification requisite of the job, thereby obviously contributing to poor service because they didn't have effective leadership in order to lead the people under you. Also, some of them were prone to maladministration and corruption as well. So, as I said, to point out, if you're a good fit for the job and you meet all the requisites, I think you should be qualified enough to actually do the job, irrespective from which political party you come, or if you don't belong to a political party at all, you're a normal candidate or a normal citizen of this country applying for a job in all spheres of government, be it from level 1 right up to level 13, which is a chief director, or even a director general, or even a head of department for that matter as such, Stephen.
Claude, do you think at the moment cadre deployment is having an impact on the civil service? And I mean, all of this is part of a much bigger thing that's happening in our society. We see now people working in provinces. One party may have been governing in that province since 1994. That could be about to change, maybe even in national government, probably unlikely. So politics suddenly really matters for the civil service.
You know, sometimes the line gets very blurred when you have to decide what is best for the citizens of our country, and if you're not actually doing the right thing or delivering on a service that needs to be done, and politics comes in the way, then at the end of the day, the entire country suffers. For example, you have major department SOEs at the moment where wrong people have been put in there. And look at what happened. Not one of the SOEs that we have in our country has really made it to the fore. Or we can say, listen, you've done it, great job. And it's all because of putting the wrong people there, whether it was cadre deployment or not. I strongly believe, the PSA strongly believes that we should get the most proficient and knowledgeable person to do the job, hardworking. We have a lot of hardworking public servants in our country, both internally and also job-seeking applicants as well, that are qualified to do this job. We need to turn around the situation. Everything around us is ailing. The infrastructure, we're having problems with budget deficits, and it's all because we don't have the capacity to do the job that we are actually employed to do. And I think if we eradicate that aspect of it, I think we can go a long way in trying to get a a much better, proper public service. In certain aspects, if you look at those departments like the Motor Licensing Bureau and the Department of Home Affairs, I for myself personally applied for a passport and promise you it took me less than 2.5 weeks to actually get a passport. So a lot of things are changing. A lot of public servants are making the difference. Those that are hardworking, those that have the necessary expertise and knowledge to actually do the job, they are making a big difference. In any work sphere, you will get an employee that's maybe lazy or not prepared to do the job, but there are mechanisms in place to actually take care of it. I think sometimes we tend to taint the entire public service just because of a few departments and a few employees that gives it a bad name, but we have a lot of public servants that are really hardworking and do a very good job under terrible conditions on a daily basis. I'm positive, the PSA is positive that this directive will go a long way in trying to achieve the public service that we all desire and we hope for, and that we can go into an office and say, listen, I had a very good experience. I'm glad that tomorrow I'll go back to the department for something else as such.
Claude Naiker, thank you. National Manager of the Public Servants Association. Really appreciate the time.